Two new flights are taking dozens of Venezuelans home from Ecuador as part of the Return to the Homeland Plan. Protest leaders in Sudan have called off talks with the military council previously set for Tuesday. And Russia proposes a cooperation solution in the Gulf region to the United Nations. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Stefania Bravo. This is from the South. The government of Venezuela is sponsoring two more flights from Ecuador to Venezuela as part of their Return to the Homeland Plan. The two flights are set for Tuesday and Wednesday, taking Venezuelan citizens who want to return home, as many of them have suffered from xenophobia and labor exploitation. Venezuelan authorities have confirmed that up until now, more than 15,000 Venezuelans have returned home thanks to the plan. 69% of them arrived by land, while 31% of them arrived by plane. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has more.
86 Venezuelan people are coming back today under the Return to Homeland Plan, a measure implemented by the Venezuelan authorities to assist Venezuelan people who have denounced situations of xenophobia and labor exploitation. At this time, in this flight, two Venezuelan people are coming back in really serious health condition. One of them, who worked at the Buenos Aires mine at the Imbabura province in the north of Ecuador, fell and rocks fell on him. Also, other citizens who work in construction fell and wooden planks fell on him. This is the first time that in this flight, leaving Ecuador, Venezuelan people are coming back in this really serious health condition. Around 3,000 Venezuelan people have taken this plan after they have denounced situations of xenophobia and labor exploitation.
We thank Denise Herrera for that update. Tuesday marks the 2 years since the election of representatives to Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly. Representatives of the legislative body held a special session at the mausoleum of the National Pantheon of Caracas, led by ANC President Diosdado Cabello. During the session, Cabello took the opportunity to recall the events of 2017, when the assembly brought about peace in the midst of a wave of opposition violence and terrorism in its attempt to destabilize the country. Among the achievements of the ANC was the passing of a decree on cryptocurrency and the petro cryptocurrency, a law against hate and for peaceful coexistence and tolerance, among other legislations.
Considering that on the 1st of May 2017, in the middle of the execution of a new and violent insurrectionary process by the fascist opposition, which attempted to stand in the way of national peace in order to carry out imperialistic interests, the President of the Republic, Nicolás Maduro Moros, convoked all Venezuelans to exercise their democratic constituent power. Considering that this democratic convocation, made possible by the head of the state and of government, adhered strictly to the Venezuelan law, it had as its fundamental purpose the establishment of peace and national stability as the essential basis of sustaining a republic, aggravated by fascist violence and its deadly consequences for our people.
We stay in Venezuela as the country mourns the murders of 6 Chavista campesino activists by a paramilitary group in Barinas state on July 27th. Social movements and family members were defiant as they called for justice. Those murdered were part of the Bolivar and Zamora Revolutionary Current and the Hugo Chavez People's Defense Brigades. The president of the National Constituent Assembly condemned the murders and called for an investigation. The Senate in Paraguay has voted to cancel a controversial energy agreement with Brazil involving the Itaipu Dam, which led to the resignation of the foreign minister. Luis Castiglione and 3 other officials who signed the secret agreement in May were forced to step down after days of protest. Trade unions said the deal was a betrayal of Paraguayan interests and would cost the country an extra $300 million. Opposition lawmakers had threatened a censure vote against President Mario Abdo Benitez if he didn't sack the officials responsible.
Itaipu Binational is the hydroelectric plant that Paraguay shares with Brazil, half and half. It was set up through an agreement signed in 1973. And in 4 years' time, the terms of that agreement are up for renegotiation. For the trade unions, protecting Paraguay's interests in the plant is fundamental for the country's future industrial development.
If this is their approach to negotiating Annex C of the treaty in 2023, then we are done for. That's why people are so worried, because people are hoping that the renegotiation in 4 years from now will give us more benefit from our energy, so that we can change this economic model based on agriculture exports that has sunk us in poverty.
It was only after the president of Paraguay's state electricity company, ANDE, resigned in protest that the agreement with Brazil became public. Opposition lawmakers said it surrendered Paraguay's control over 50% of Itaipu.
We are confirming that what we said was absolutely correct. It's an agreement drawn up in secret, without our technicians being involved, which totally hands over our interests to Brazil.
The lower house threatened a censure motion against President Mario Abdo if he didn't sack the 4 officials responsible for signing the agreement between Paraguay and Brazil. All 4 have now stepped down, but the lawmakers are still putting the president on notice. He must defend the interests of Paraguay.
Let it be clear that he may have to go too, because here we will not allow the interest of all Paraguayans to be betrayed, their present and their future. Because if we don't negotiate to defend Itaipu, we will not be able to tackle the problems of poverty and inequality.
Social movements say they will keep a close eye on any future negotiations the government undertakes on Itaipu, which according to official figures is the biggest energy-producing plant in the world.
19 people have been confirmed dead after a deadly bus accident in the province of Canta in Peru. According to local sources, the bus had been speeding, which led to the accident. The bus driver is among the victims. The accident occurred as travelers were returning to the capital following a national holiday. Authorities have since made a call to all travelers to respect speed limits in the region. France is demanding that Brazil abide by strict environmental safeguards and respect the Paris Climate Accord as part of the free trade deal between Mercosur and the European Union. The French Foreign Minister laid out the conditions on a visit to Brasilia. Danai Galetti reports.
After a meeting with the Brazilian Foreign Minister Ernesto Araujo, his French counterpart, Jean-Yves Le Drian, explained the conditions needed for the trade deal between Mercosur and the European Union to be ratified. These include implementation of the Paris Accord on climate change, compliance with French environmental and health regulations, and protections for farmers in sensitive sectors. After 20 years of negotiations, the free trade deal was signed in June between the EU and Mercosur, which also includes Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. However, French farmers are worried about imports of South American beef, while green movements in Europe are concerned about the environmental policies of President Jair Bolsonaro. Since he came to power in January, President Bolsonaro has removed restrictions on a number of pesticides, some of which are banned in the United States and countries of the European Union. Deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon has also accelerated dramatically in the last 6 months. Le Drian pointed out that if these 3 conditions are met, the EU-Mercosur trade deal will go to the French National Assembly for ratification, but that this could take some time.
Thank you, Danai, for that report. On Wednesday, the Mexican government will publish its latest figures for economic growth. The president has dismissed forecasts by some international financial institutions, which suggest Mexico is entering a recession.
President Andrés Manuel López Obrador insists there is no possibility the Mexican economy will go into recession. He said forecasts of lower growth in the coming months have their origin in those groups whose interests have been affected by his taking office.
This is the fantasy of those who hanker after neoliberalism. They are obsessed with it. They get very excited, but there is no recession. We are doing very well.
Last week, the president responded in similar vein to the International Monetary Fund, which cut the country's growth forecast for 2019 from 1.6% to 0.9%. He questioned the way it measured the economic indicators.
If there are improvements in family incomes, but more inflation, then there is no welfare. But they don't measure that. They neglect the strength of the peso.
Bank of America and JP Morgan have raised the possibility of a technical recession based on 0.2% drop in GDP during the first quarter. However, some analysts believe that López Obrador's focus on improving welfare could turn around the situation of inequality in Mexico.
In Mexico, 1% of families, that's 130,000 Mexicans, own 40% of the wealth. That is dramatic, and the government is seeking exactly the opposite with its social programs. For example, to rebuild small-scale farming and boost opportunities for the young.
Unemployment must also be reduced, and the informal economy, in which more than 50% of the economically active population works, must be reduced.
What we need to find are mechanisms so that what grows is employment, productive employment, formal employment, decent jobs with decent wages that help incomes grow.
The debate on whether or not there is a recession in Mexico will continue. On Wednesday, the National Institute of Statistics will publish growth figures for the second quarter of 2019.
Coming up after the break, protest leaders in Sudan cancel talks with the ruling military council. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Protest leaders in Sudan have canceled talks with the ruling military council, which were set for Tuesday. The protest leaders said their negotiating team was still in El Obeid city, where 5 teenagers were shot on Monday during a rally. No announcement has been made about when the talks will be restarted. The two sides signed a power-sharing agreement on July 17th, and on Tuesday they were meant to discuss the powers of the proposed joint civilian-military government. Meanwhile, military authorities have ordered all schools nationwide to suspend classes indefinitely. The directive came after crowds of students launched demonstrations against the killing of the 5 teenagers in Al Baid, who were striking against shortages of bread and fuel. The general acting as governor of the region has said that infiltrators were responsible for the teenagers' killings and imposed a curfew in urban areas.
The events escalated quickly. Some infiltrators intervened and created a state of chaos which resulted in looting of property owned by Khartoum Bank in Al Baid, an attempt to loot the French bank in Al Baid as well. This led to the fall of a number of martyrs, reaching 5 people until now. We ask God to bestow His mercy on them and to comfort their families and beloved ones. An investigation has been opened to look into the killing and the harm.
A second case of Ebola has been detected on the Democratic Republic of Congo's border with Rwanda. Reportedly, the patient was being treated in the Goma Ebola Treatment Center after arriving in the city from Ituri province. Earlier this month, a pastor tested positive and later died after arriving in Goma by bus. According to figures released on Tuesday by the DRC Health Ministry, the death toll has risen to 1,790 since the outbreak started last August. The president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, and his predecessor, Joseph Kabila, have agreed to form a coalition government. The cabinet will consist of 66 members. According to chief negotiator, the prime minister and another 42 positions will be held by Kabila's coalition and the rest by Tshisekedi's alliance. This announcement comes after 7 months of a power-sharing struggle between the two parties. Workers of the Shawini municipality in South Africa have started a strike demanding a wage increase. The entire Shawini Central Business District has been on a standstill since Monday as disgruntled municipal workers and bus drivers marched in the streets as many road blockades were set up. However, the acting Director General of Communications and Information, Fumla Williams, has urged the workers to desist from vandalism and hold talks with the government to find a solution.
Government has noted with concern the recent strike in the city of Tshwane, which is led by the South African Municipal Workers Union. The concern is the vandalizing of the infrastructure and also the intimidation of people. As government would like to say that whilst we acknowledge that the workers have a constitutional right to participate in the strike, they are, however, not allowed to vandalize property in the process of expressing their right. They are not allowed to intimidate others who opt not to go out on strike. We are a constitutional country that is governed by the laws, and any form of dispute that may prevail in the labor market, we would appeal that South Africans must find dialogue as the first option of resolving their disputes.
Morocco's King Mohammed VI has granted royal pardons to over 4,000 prisoners across the country to mark the 20th anniversary of his accession to the throne. Those pardoned include people involved in protests that rocked the North African country in 2016 and 2017, demanding action against corruption and unemployment. The king also pledged the government reshuffle and an injection of new blood into political and administrative positions to help tackle the inequality in the country.
By God's will, this new stage will be marked by the launch of a new generation of projects. It requires new skills in different positions and levels of responsibility. New blood must therefore be brought into political, economic, and administrative institutions and bodies, including the government. For that, on the horizon of the coming year, we instruct the head of government to submit to our assessment some proposals to renew and enrich the roles with responsibility, both within government and the administration, by providing high-level profiles chosen on competency and merit criteria.
Coming up after the break, at least 5 people killed in Quetta, Pakistan in a blast near a police station. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. At least 5 people have been killed in Quetta, Pakistan in a blast near a police station. Another 27 have been left injured. According to officials, an explosive-ridged motorcycle was detonated to target a police van parked outside the station. Last Tuesday, a similar blast happened when an explosive went off near a store in Quetta, killing 2 people and injuring 16. Russia has proposed an international cooperation plan to boost security in the Gulf region at the United Nations. Moscow's efforts to stabilize the situation comes in response to increasing tensions between the United States and Iran and a number of attacks on oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz. Russia's foreign ministry stressed the need for a multilateral solution and insisted that the League of Arab States, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the Gulf Cooperation Council be involved in talks. Moscow has suggested that the United States is planning to back out of a treaty banning nuclear weapon tests. The U.S. denied the allegation, but is set to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty on Friday.
We see emerge groundless accusations against us, a pattern already used on the context of the INF, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. It would appear that through propaganda around false claims about Russia's compliance, there are attempts to prepare international opinion for a U.S. exit from the CTBT, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, and to blame Russia again for everything. I can say quite firmly that that kind of trick will not work again.
China has highlighted the successes in the Xinjiang province after coming under scrutiny for its anti-terrorism policies in the region. Beijing considers the attention on the Uyghur Autonomous Region unwarranted and saying it stems from efforts to politicize human rights.
Since the new round of poverty alleviation efforts from 2014 to 2018, a total of 2,314,700 people were lifted out of poverty, and the poverty rate in rural areas dropped from 19.4% to 6.1%. Next year, or in the year 2020, Xinjiang will see that all its residents have got rid of poverty. Along with other areas in the country, we will have no poor person or family behind, and we will strive to build moderately prosperous society in all respects here in Xinjiang.
And Turkey's foreign minister has said that Ankara will send an observation team to Xinjiang after he held a meeting with his Chinese counterpart in Thailand. Turkey has often expressed concern about the region, which is home to Uyghur people who speak a Turkic language.
During the visit of our President Tayyip Erdogan, Chinese President Xi Jinping made an offer to Turkey to send an observation team to the region. After that, the Chinese embassy made an official invitation by coming to our ministry on July 24th. We talked about this today as well. President Erdogan has already given an affirmative answer to this invitation. Now, upon the invitation of China, we will send a team consisting of 10 people from different institutions.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.